أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, we continue and we are up to Bab Al-Dhihar. Bab Al-Dhihar, Dhihar taken from the word Dhahar, which means back in the Arabic language. And this in essence is the man saying to his wife, either directly or indirectly with the intention that she is haram for him, meaning he is not going to be intimate with her at all. This is something that is not good in Islam, and it is a major sin in Islam for a person to make something halal haram. And in this there is also big punishment that a person has, which we'll get into inshallah. This was a way of harming the wife previously, where the man would say to his wife, "You are like the back of my mother, anti ka dhahri ummi." You are like the back of my mother, just like I can't be intimate with my mother, I can't be intimate with you. So it is haram. And this is not something allowed in Islam, because we know from the purposes of marriage and the goals of marriage is for a person to fulfill their desires in the halal. And whether it is the man being prevented from it or the woman being prevented from it, this is an act of oppression and it is not allowed. If a person has problems, there are ways to go about your problems and to solve your problems. As for refusing a person intimacy with no valid reason, then this is something not allowed. And yes, it's not very common. It's not very common like it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ or before that period, except that we should also know the rulings. Why? So that people do not make the same mistake, because it is not only the wording that is taken into consideration. And in most people that haven't studied fiqh, they won't understand what it means, the dhihar, or for someone to say, "You're like the back of my mother." But you do have people that say, "Wallahi, I will never sleep with you again. Wallahi, I will never be with you again. Wallahi, I will treat you like one of my siblings or one of my children."
Yes.
Meaning, yes, you are married to me, we can have a good relationship, but I'll never be intimate with you. Whether it is the husband saying it to the wife or the wife saying it to the husband. There are different rulings, but there are consequences for both. He says, rahimahullah, وهو أن يقول لامرأته أنت عليك ظهر أمي أو من تحرم عليه على التأبيد أو يقول أنت علي كأبي يريد تحريمها به. This is to say to one's wife, "You are to me like the back of my mother," meaning a woman who is permanently unmarriageable to him, or to say to her, "You are to me like my father," intending by it to make her unmarriageable to him. This is not allowed, as we mentioned, and Allah Azza wa says in this regard, الذين يظاهرون منكم من نسائهم ما هن أمهاتهم إن أمهاتهم إلا اللائي ولدنهم وإنهم ليقولون منكرا من القول وزورا وإن الله لعفو غفور. Those who pronounce dhihar among you to separate from your wives, they are not consequently their mothers. Their mothers are none but those who gave birth to them. And indeed they are saying an objectionable statement and a falsehood, but indeed Allah is pardoning and forgiving. This is the evidence, taban, for the dhihar being not allowed. But I want you, just before we move on, to think of this last part. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَعَفُوٌ غَفُورٌ. And verily Allah is pardoning and forgiving. How will many people understand that last part in regards to the sin itself? Allah is telling you this is wrong. You're not allowed to say that they're like your mothers. They're not like your mothers. Your mother is your mother, that's your wife. You're not allowed to say, it's not allowed for you to make that claim. And know that Allah is forgiving and merciful. How would many people take that statement at the end regarding the sin itself?
So he's telling the people to go عفو غفور like Allah, telling us.
كيف يعني?
Allah وأن الله عفو غفور. He's reminding us like you should be like do the same act.
So you should be forgiving and merciful. جيد.
Like
لكن بالنسبة للذنب هو ارتكب ذنبا الله عز وجل يقول أنه عفو غفور. كيف الواحد يفهم هذه الأسماء التي استخدمها الله عز وجل مع هذا الذنب؟ كيف يتوقع الكثير؟
That's something simple. Like it's
Good,
not
very good. Okay? A lot of people think that this is something simple. Since Allah Azza wa Jal said that He's Afu and He's Ghafoor, it's something simple. It's not a problem. Yes, Allah said it's a sin, yes, Allah said it's bad, but Allah said that He's forgiving, so it's not that bad of a problem. And we'll see inshallah Azza wa Jalla how bad of a problem it actually is. فلا تحل له حتى يكفر بتحرير رقبة من قبل أن يتماسى فمن لم يجد فصيام شهرين متتابعين من قبل أن يتماسى فمن لم يستطع فإطعام 60 مسكينا. Even though Allah Azza wa Jalla said that He is pardoning and forgiving, but Allah Azza wa Jalla gave you now rules for that pardoning and forgiving. And this is very important for those that think, خلاص, I'll commit a sin and I'll ask Allah for forgiveness. Yes, Allah is forgiving and pardoning and merciful, but sometimes there are punishments for that sin that you commit. And you need to compensate for that sin that you committed by the means that Allah placed for forgiveness. You can't just say, Rabbi Ghfirli, and that's it, done, finished. Some sins, yes. Some sins, yes. Other sins, Allah put a specific punishment there that you need to abide by to get that forgiveness. Allah Azza wa Jalla, the author, rahimahullah, he says, but it's taken from the ayah, then she is not permissible for him, and he is not allowed to be intimate with her until he expiates for that oath that he said by emancipating a slave. He needs to free a slave. That's number one. He needs to free a slave. If he cannot afford it, then he should fast 2 consecutive months before they can have intercourse. And if he can't find a slave or he can't afford a slave, what's his duty? He needs to fast 2 months back to back. 2 lunar months. So it could be 29 or 30 days. Straight. What happens if he breaks it for no reason? You know what? It's hot today. I want to go to the beach. I'm not going to fast. I'm just going to go down to the beach and have a good jolly time with my friends. He has to start all over again. This is not something simple. And whoever is unable, then he is to feed 60 poor individuals. These are in order. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ or فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ. Like when it comes to that type of wording, whoever is unable, it shows that there is order. So number 1 is to free a slave. Number 2, to fast 2 consecutive months. Number 3, for a person to feed 60 poor people. And it's in order if you're unable. طيب. When it comes to this, is this a simple punishment? It's not a simple punishment, it's called مغلظة. This is actually called a hard punishment, a hardened punishment. This is not simple. So even though Allah is forgiving and merciful, but Allah told you how to get that forgiveness and mercy. And part of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is that He did not make that woman haram upon you forever, as in automatic divorce. Because when you say she's like my mother, are you allowed to marry your mother? So it could have been like you now have divorced her. Because you can't marry your mother, then you can't be married to this woman because you said she's like your mother. But Allah's forgiving and mercy for that. He didn't make it automatic divorce. And that's why when we went through the door of divorce, the chapter of divorce, there was the sarih, okay, that which is direct divorce by saying anti taliq, or you are divorced, or a derivative of them both, or there is the kinaya, okay, for a person to say something which may be understood to be divorced, like get out of my house, or I never want to see you again. That we go back to the person's intention. Same thing here. It is from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal that when He says this, you go back to their intention. Did you mean by a divorce? No. So you're not automatically divorced, but this is not a statement that you should say, and it is a major sin because there's a prescribed punishment for it. And so this is how you now get the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is the same punishment for what? This is the same punishment for what?
Someone killed someone by accident.
لا.
Doesn't repay all the.
لا.
هي يا شيخ.
What about the wife?
She says this.
No.
هي
What?
Not being intimate.
هي العقوبة.
هذه نفس عقوبة ماذا؟
هي العقوبة.
الله يهديك. هذا أين أنت؟ Same punishment as what? Freeing a slave, or fasting 2 consecutive months, or having to feed 60 poor people. Same punishment as what?
During Ramadan.
Good. For a person if they sleep with their spouse in the month of Ramadan during the day and they are not allowed. وحكمها وصفتها ككفارة الجماع في شهر رمضان. Its ruling and description are similar to the expiation for having intercourse during the daytime of Ramadan. Obviously for the ones that are obliged to fast. Someone is not obliged to fast, as you will learn inshallah in the fiqh course. someone who's not obliged to fast, like someone who was traveling, or someone who, besides traveling, there's questions, I don't want to get into it, someone who was forced, etc. But someone who was traveling and they were able to break their fast, this is an example of someone who is allowed to be intimate with their spouse also. طيب فإن وطئ قبل التكفير عصى ولزمته الكفارة المذكورة. If it is sinful to have intercourse before expiation, and he still must expiate with the expiation mentioned above. If a person made, I'll try and say the rule in ways that it's not confusing. If a person has an expiation for a particular reason, if he continuously or multitude of times has that same reason committed, the expiation is the same. Example, if a person said, Wallahi, I'm not going to eat apples. Okay? Wallahi, I'm not going to eat apples. And then he ate an apple on purpose. He has to now pay kafarat yamin. Now he has to pay the expiation for breaking an oath. Then what happens if he eats 2, 3, 4, 5 apples? Does he have to break it multiple times, or it's still only once? It's still only once, okay? That's what it means. I apologize that the wording was off, but if a person has an expiation for a particular reason, even if he commits that reason multiple times, then it's still under that same expiation, that number one. Unless he says it multiple times. Unless he says, Wallahi, I'm not going to eat apples, and then he ate an apple. And then again he says, Wallahi, I'm not going to eat apples, and he eats apples again. Now there's multiple reasons, and so the multiple breaking has multiple expiations. ومن ظهر من امرأته مرارا ولم يكفر فكفارة واحدة. إن ظهر من نسائه بكلمة واحدة فكفارة واحدة. وإن ظهر منهن بكلمات فعليه كفارة لكل واحدة. If one pronounces dhihar against his wife multiple times without expiation, he is liable for only one expiation. If he pronounces dhihar against all of his wives in one statement, then he is required to expiate once. But if he pronounces dhihar against his wives in separate statements, one expiation is required for each one of them. وإن ظهر من أمته أو حرمها أو حرم شيئا مباحا أو ظهرت المرأة من زوجها أو حرمته لم يحرم وكفارته كفارة يمين. If he pronounces dhihar against his slave woman, or forbids her for himself, or forbids something else that is permissible, or if the wife pronounces dhihar against her husband, or forbids him for herself, he does not become forbidden. The expiation for all that is like that. The expiation for all that is like that is the expiation of the unfulfilled oath. And if a person says regarding something else that is halal, it's now haram on me. So wallahi, I'm not going to eat apples, or wallahi, I'm not going to drive a car, or wallahi, I'm not going to sleep in a bed. And then he ends up doing that, then this is now an expiation of an oath, kafarat yamin. Or if the wife says to her husband, Wallahi, I'm never going to sleep with you again. She doesn't have that same expiation. Okay, she just has to do expiation of the oath. This is only for the man who says it to his wife. Okay, what's the difference between this and the ilat that we spoke about previously?
That has certain time.
Good. Okay, the ilat has a time period, whereas this is saying forever. And that's what obviously the punishment for it is worse. طيب كتاب اللعان. This is a bad one. إذا قذف الرجل امرأته البالغة العاقلة الحرة المسلمة بالزنا لازمه الحد إن لم يلاعن. If a man accuses his adult, sane, free, and chaste wife, meaning she's a afifa, she's not a bad, immoral woman, she's known to be a chaste woman. If a man accuses his adult, sane, free, and chaste Muslim wife of adultery and does not go through with li'an, he is subject to the had. Tayyib. This is talking about a person who accuses his wife of adultery. If someone says, my wife committed adultery, and she slept with someone whilst we were married, this is a major claim. And it is not allowed in Islam whatsoever. you are not allowed to accuse anyone of zina. Doesn't matter who they are. You are not allowed to accuse anyone of zina. If you accuse someone of zina, you have to bring 4 upright male witnesses. If you do not provide 4 upright Muslim male witnesses that actually seen the act, then what do you cop? Something called haddul qadhf. The punishment for qadhf, for accusing, which is 80 lashes. The only exception to this rule is a man who sees his wife committing this act. If a man sees his wife committing this act, then he is allowed to do what's called li'an. What's li'an? Again, to summarize, even though we'll go through it inshallah, it is a man going to a Muslim judge with a sharia and he says, I swear by Allah that she committed this, I swear by Allah that she committed this, yani adultery, I swear by Allah that she committed this, I swear by Allah that she committed this, yani 4 times. And then the 5th one, and may the curse of Allah be upon me if I am from the liars. I'm summarizing. So he goes and he accuses his wife of committing zina. He has to take 4 oaths, and then the 5th one, that the curse be upon him if he is lying. And she either accepts it, that yes, I did, or she refutes that claim by saying that she takes an oath against him that he is lying, he's lying, and may the anger of Allah be upon her if she is lying. Okay, so a person has the right to defend themselves because they don't have any substantial evidence except their claim. But if they do that, there are rules now that apply. If a person is not in front of a Muslim judge where they are going to uphold the Sharia through al-li'an, then they are not allowed to accuse anyone of zina, including their own spouse. Some people are very light when it comes to this matter. Very easygoing, very flexible. Where they will say, if there's marriage problems, Sheikh, she cheated on me. Pause. Don't say that. Don't say, Wallah, she cheated on me. Because the Sheikh doesn't have the ability to implement the Sharia. The Sharia is implemented by the Muslim government. So in front of the Muslim government, yes, okay, you can say this if you want to go ahead with it. If not, then don't accuse. Don't accuse. Or even the woman, Sheikh, he is cheating on me. He's sleeping around with other women. You are not allowed to accuse anyone of zina. Even if you see it yourself. In front of a Muslim judge, it's a different story. But if you, let's say the 3 most religious men on the face of the earth. The 3 most religious men, not the religious, Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman radiallahu anhum ajma'in. Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman. No 3 better people after the Anbiya. If they seen someone committing zina, they're not allowed to go and say this person committed zina. Because how many do you need? 4. Let alone anyone else. The only exception, as we said, is the husband regarding the wife in front of a Muslim judge. What does a person do if they feel someone is cheating on them, or they know? Let's just say they know 100% that that person is cheating on them. Okay, get divorced if you need to. Get divorced and move on with your life. Leave that person, they're not good people. Yes, 100% untenable. Move on with your life. Wife, leave the husband leave the wife, whatever it may be, but you don't accuse of zina. Also, what falls under this is the things so simple on people's tongues by saying words against others which are also indicative of that person committing zina. Like when they say someone they're fighting and say, Ya ibn al-haram. Oh, son of haram. What do they mean by that? That the person's mother fornicated, okay, or was adulterous, and then she conceived and gave birth to this child. And she wasn't married. That wasn't from a legitimate pregnancy. That's accusing her of zina. It's not allowed. Or some other words that people say in Arabic starting with sheen and in English starting with s and the like. Okay, this is not allowed because you are accusing that person of committing zina. And that is an accusation that you need witnesses for. Tab'an, the big major sin is for those that we mentioned. Okay, a person has to be a muhsana. She has to be chaste. She has to be a Muslimah. But even for the non-Muslims, this is still not allowed. Okay, this is still not allowed. وإن كانت ذمية أو أمة فعليه التعزير إن لم يلاعن ولا يعرض له حتى تطالبه. If she is a slave woman or a dhimmiya is a woman who is from Ahl Kitab that pays the Muslim government a jizya, and she is protected. Her honor, her wealth, her blood, etc. is protected by the Muslims. If she is a slave woman or a dhimmiya, then he is subject to a discretionary punishment, ta'zir, if he does not go through li'an and she sues him. So you have a had and you have a ta'zir in terms of the punishments. The had is what Allah Azza wa Jalla specified. Allah Azza wa Jalla specified, for example, the thief with the condition fulfilled, the hand cut off. The fornicator, conditions fulfilled, whipping or stoning. Alcohol, conditions fulfilled, whipping, etc. Ta'zir is that which is something not specified by the Sharia. So let's say someone was speeding. Can you give him a fine? Yes, you can give him a fine. Is it called hadd or ta'zir? Ta'zir. Why? Because it's not specified by the Sharia. Okay, the ta'zirat have their own rules, but this is one of the rules. Okay, so someone who is a non-Muslim, or they are Muslim but they are a slave, if someone accused them of fornicating or committing adultery, then this person has the right to take that person to court and say, this person said 1, 2, 3 about me, and so I want the punishment to be brought against him. They won't have the had like the Muslims, because that had is for the Muslimat. Okay, al-mu'minat. Allah has specified that in the Quran, the believing women. As for the non-believing women, it's still not allowed, but it's not the same level. It's not the same level. So they'll have the ta'zir, and the ta'zir is up to the government. The ta'zir is left to the government. As we said, there's conditions, but it's left ultimately to the government. طيب, the description of the li'an. واللعان أن يقول بحضرة الحاكم أو نائبه أشهد بالله إني لمن الصادقين فيما رميت به امرأتي هذه من الزنا ويشير إليها فإن لم تكن حاضرة سماها ونسبها ثم يوقف عند الخامسة فيقال له اتق لها فإنها الموجبة وعذاب الدنيا أهون من عذاب الآخرة فإن أبى إلا أن يتم فليقل وإن لعنة الله عليه إن كان من الكاذبين فيما رميت به امرأتي هذه من الزنا. Li'an is to say in front of the ruler or his agent, yani someone acting on behalf of the ruler like a judge, I bear witness by Allah that I am truthful in accusing my wife of adultery while pointing at her. If she is not present, he mentions her full name. Before the fifth oath, he should be stopped and told, fear Allah, for it is binding, and the torment of this life is easier than the torment of the hereafter. If he insists on proceeding, then he says, may the curse of Allah be upon me if I am lying concerning adultery and I accuse my wife of, and that which I accuse my wife of. And this person, he has to stand there swearing 4 times that his wife committed adultery, and then before he says the fifth, he is stopped and he's reminded. This is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to remind them that be careful of what you're going to say. Be careful of what you're going to say. Why? Because the punishment in this dunya, if you're making a mistake or if you're lying, the punishment of this dunya is easier than the punishment of the hereafter. What would his punishment be?
Have to leave the city.
Before, good, he will get whipped 80 times because it's qadf. He accused her of zina and he didn't go through either with 4 witnesses or with the li'an. Tayyib, what does she do in defense? Okay, especially those that accuse the Sharia of being misogynistic. No, the Sharia doesn't just take whatever the husband says, as we've seen previously, and as we'll see now also. And he can't just accuse his wife of zina. But if he did, now she has the right to defend herself. Either she accepts it because she did do it, and she prefers the adhab in this dunya as opposed to the adhab in the akhirah, or she lies. Or she lies. What does she do? ويدرأ عنها العذاب أن تشهد 4 شهادات بالله إنه لمن الكاذبين فيما رماني به من الزنا ثم توقف عند الخامسة وتخوف كما يخوف الرجل فإن أبت إلا أن تتم فلتقل وإن غضب الله عليها إن كان من الصادقين فيما رماني به زوجي هذا من الزنا. But he averts the punishment from her if she bears witness 4 times with an oath by Allah that her husband is lying concerning the adultery he is accusing her of, she will be stopped before the 5th time and discouraged from it, just as the man is. If she insists on proceeding, she must invoke the wrath of Allah on herself if he, the accuser, is telling the truth about the accusation of adultery against her. If that happens, then khalas, the matter is left to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't have this, you don't have that, but there are consequences. ثم يقول الحاكم قد فرقت بينكما فتحرم عليه تحريما مؤبدا. The judge should then say, I separate you two, making her forever unmarriageable to him. And if he says that, and if she says what she says as a response, then the hakim, the judge, or whoever is acting on behalf of the judge, he will separate between them. So the ruler or anyone acting on behalf of the ruler, he will separate them and they are never allowed to get married again. This is very different to our time. Again, if we don't have Sharia here, even though the sheikh is acting as a judge between them, he doesn't have the power, the authority to implement the Sharia. So you don't go and do this because the sheikh doesn't have the ability. And some people, wallahi, they're so loose with accusing someone of zina and they stay with them. And she accuses her husband of zina and she wants to stay. Or he accuses his wife of zina and he wants to stay. Now why are you accusing her of zina then? Why are you accusing her of zina if you're going to stay with her? Now, it's like a sick world that we live in, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, inshallah. Wallahu musta'an. وإن كان بينهما ولد فنفاه انتفى عنه سواء كان حملا أو مولودا ما لم يكن أقر به أو وجد منه ما يدل على الإقرار به لما روى ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رجلا لاعن امرأته وانتفى من ولدها ففرق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بينهما وألحق الولد بالأم. If they have a child and he denies paternity and he denies that he's the father of this child, then the child is not attributed to him, whether still in the womb or already born, if he has not previously acknowledged his paternity. This is because of Ibn Umar anhuma's statement narrating that a man went through li'an against his wife and denied the paternity of her child. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ separated them and attributed the child to his mother. When does this happen? When can you say that's not my child? Let's say a man now, he has an issue with his wife and he accuses his wife of cheating. And so he believes that this child is not his child. When is he allowed to say this is not my child?
When he's certain. When he's certain it's not his child.
When he's certain? How do you get certain? But let's just say that case, okay? The guy's not around for 9 months. He comes back home, Allahu Akbar, there's a baby. She says, Mubarak, La ilaha illallah. What's going on here? Can he automatically say this is not my child?
Yes.
There has to be mula'ana. Okay, there has to be mula'ana. That an invoked curse, like what we went through, because now you're accusing her of zina. Even though you're correct 100%, there is clear evidence. But you can't just say, because she's your wife, the asal is, if your wife has kids, it's your child. That's the asal. So now you're saying, no, it's not my child. What's the only way it's not going to be your child? She's not Maryam alayhi salam. What's the only way it's not going to be your child? That she committed fornication. So now, if you are accusing her of fornicating, then there has to be the process of mula'ana. There has to be that process. Otherwise, you need 4 male witnesses. You don't have that, then you need to go through the li'an. Okay? So if a person went through li'an, then they can say, this is not my child. But for a person to simply say, that's not my child, Islamically that's not allowed. Islamically that's not allowed. Tayyib, DNA evidence. DNA evidence, it is corroborating evidence. It is not the primary evidence in Islam. So someone can use it to assist, but we don't say automatically with a DNA test, it takes over the part of li'an. Li'an has to be there. Okay, and this is something very dangerous because a lot of people, a'yadhan billah, accuse their wife of zina, and maybe she did commit zina. But if you want to go through that accusation, then you need to do it properly. Okay, you need to do it properly. And again, this is one of the problems with living in a non-Muslim country, that we don't have the Sharia implemented. This is one of the issues. And wallah, I don't like to talk about certain matters because I don't want to cause despair and bring about pessimism in the community. But these are rulings that we should know, and they are problematic. Wallahu musta'an. Mula'ana, everything that we're talking about in the last 5 minutes. Allah yadik. فصل ومن ولدت امرأته فصل ومن ولدت امرأته أو أمته التي أقر بوطئها ولدا يمكن كونه منه لحقه نسبه لقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الولد للفراش وللعاهر الحجر. Subsection: if his wife or slave woman with whom he admits having had intercourse gives birth to a child who could possibly be his, then this paternity of the child is immediately established. This is because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the child belongs to the bed, yani the legitimate partner, and the adulterer gets stoned. So if he has the chance of impregnating that woman, and she has a child, as we mentioned, automatically that child is attributed to him and her. So now for you to go to the process of saying this is not my child, now there has to be either the 4 male witnesses, because you're accusing her of zina, or the li'an. طيب, the denial of paternity, ولا ينتفي ولد المرأة إلا باللعان. The wife's child can never be denied paternity except through li'an, which we just mentioned, and the reason why. وإن لم يكن كونه منه مثل أن تلد أمته لأقل من 6 أشهر منذ وطئها أو امرأته لأقل من ذلك منذ أمكن اجتماعهما أو كان الزوج ممن لا يولد لمثله كمن له دون 10 سنين أو الخصي أو المجبوب لم يلحقه. If it is not possible that that child is his, such as when his slave woman gives birth to a child with less than 6 months from the time he had intercourse with her, or his wife gives birth in less than that period from the time it was possible for them to be together, or he cannot possibly be a father, such as one who is younger than 10 years old, one who is castrated, or one who has undergone appendectomy, then the child will not be attributed to him, because there's no chance of that happening, but that has to be established by the court. Why? Because we said the minimum time for pregnancy, Islamically speaking, is how long? How much? 6 months. Now, and the maximum 12. جيد. Now, the maximum 12. So for a person to simply claim it, no. We have to say, okay, what's the time frame, etc., etc., etc. That's why when Mr. Raghib said 9 months, that's what happens when you miss a few lessons. Now, you're not only Raghib here, Habibi. Here is a Raghib too. I know he doesn't come often, but he's here today. This is very important. This is very important. He has said 6 months. Is it possible for there to be a baby born prematurely? Of course. Of course. Yani maybe a baby was born after 5 months. Okay? But this is something that is obviously an exception to the rule. And obviously it takes doctors and experts to tell you that yes, this is obviously a premature baby. Now it's not a fully developed baby, etc., etc., etc. And this is where experts need to be brought in. It is possible, but this is where experts need to be brought in. This is where you have corroborating evidence. فصل وإذا وطئ رجلان امرأة في طهر واحد بشبهة أو وطئ شريكان أمتهما في طهر واحد فأتت بولد أو ادعى نسب مجهول النسب الرجلان أري القافة معهما أو مع أقاربهما فألحق بمن ألحقوه منهما وإن ألحقوه بما لحق بهما وإن أشكل أمره أو تعارض قول القافة أو لم يوجد قافة ترك حتى يبلغ فيلحق بمن انتسب إليه منهما ولا يقبل قول القائف إلا أن يكون عدلا مجربا في الإصابة. Subsection: if 2 men mistakenly have intercourse with 1 woman in the same period of purity between 2 menstruations. So let's say she thought that automatically if you get divorced, you can get married straight away. Let's say she didn't know that you have to do a iddah. So she was intimate with someone, then they got divorced, then 2 weeks later she got married to another man, not knowing that you can't be married in that period. So 2 people were intimate with her at that time. Okay, so both of them have the possibility of impregnating her. Or if 2 co-owners of a slave woman have intercourse with their slave during the same period of purity, because this is not allowed. So they made a mistake. Okay, they both thought that they had right to intimacy and they didn't know that the other one had the exclusive right, then there was an issue, but both of them now have the chance to impregnate. And then she gives birth to a child, or if two men seek the attribution of the same child whose lineage is unknown. There's a kid, no one knows whose kid it is. So someone says, this is for us. You have two different people saying, this is for us. The child will be shown to the, I should have learned how to say this word, the qafa, the physiognomist. Along with this is, remember, the person who is an expert in looking at the features of a child or a person and looking at someone else and saying, yes, they are related or they are not related. They are experts in this field. Along with them, the two men or their relatives, and will be attributed to whomever the physiognomist attribute him to or her. If they attribute the child to both men, he or she will be attributed to both. And they're both now responsible for looking after them. If they say no, they are related to this person, then we take their word. If the attribution becomes difficult, the physiognomist or the physiognomist disagree, or there are no physiognomists, that is, neither can prove his claim, the child will be left to choose who to belong to once he or she reaches puberty. And once that child grows up, then they have the choice to make the claim to whoever they want from them both. Okay? Sometimes they say, we believe that we're from this family, or they feel that they look more like this family, or sometimes it's been some famous people in history, some people were more wealthier, so they made the claim to them, etc. But this is when his lineage is unknown, and then two people claim him, and then that person attributes themselves to one of them because there was no way to establish at that time. The opinion of the physiognomist will not be accepted unless he is trustworthy and has been tried and proven to be skillful. So you can't just be wallah anyone taking a guess. It needs to be people who are experts in their field. Now, as we mentioned, alhamdulillah, you got DNA testing, and you can get to a very, very, very close degree of certainty through DNA testing. Even if the government or the court wants to be extra careful, they can easily do testing for this person and this person in completely different labs and see what the results are. Now, and it's very, 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 very close to certainty itself. To summarize this chapter, okay, the denial of or the accusing of adultery and the denial of paternity of a child. Number one, you are not allowed to accuse your wife of zina. Nor is the wife allowed to accuse the husband of zina. Nor are you allowed to accuse anyone of zina except on two occasions. Number one, you have 4 male witnesses who are upright, who actually seen the act physically. And who are you going to tell? You're going to a Muslim judge. Do we have a Muslim judge here in Australia that's upholding, that's implementing the Sharia? No. So are you allowed to accuse anyone of zina? No, you're not allowed to accuse anyone of zina. Okay? Your spouse. The second case is your spouse. If you see your wife committing zina, then you go to the Muslim judge and you accuse the judge of, you accuse the wife that she committed zina in front of the judge. And now he will ask you if you have 4 male witnesses. No, then you have to do the li'an. The li'an, mula'ana, okay? Now you have to swear by Allah 4 times that she committed zina. The 5th time, that may the curse of Allah be upon you if you are lying. She either accepts that or she says no, that's wrong, and she swears 4 times by Allah Azza wa Jal that you are lying, and the 5th time that the anger of Allah be upon her if she is lying. Is there a judge in Australia implementing the Sharia? No. So are you allowed to accuse your wife of zina? No. Okay? If a person accuses someone of zina, this is a major sin. If a person accuses an upright, chaste Muslim woman of zina, this is a major sin. And the punishment for it is 80 lashes. It's not something simple. And the punishment in this dunya is far easier than the punishment in the hereafter. So if you ever are interested in what it feels like, just get your dad's belt and give yourself a nice whip on the back. And if you don't like it, then give yourself 10 more. And if you don't like it, then remind yourself the punishment of Allah is far worse. Okay, don't muck around with this stuff. Even a non-Muslim, you are not allowed to accuse them of zina. You're not allowed to accuse them of zina. Yes, it's not to the same degree as accusing a Muslim, chaste, upright woman of zina, but nevertheless, you shouldn't make it easy on your tongue. Tayyib. If a man accuses his wife of adultery, okay, or he suspects, I'll say, he suspects that his wife committed adultery, and now he believes this child is not his. That child, if you are married, automatically becomes your child. Automatically. The way for a person to say, no, that's not my child, is not just through DNA tests. You can't say, I'll do a DNA test and I'm accusing you of zina, but we stay married. It doesn't work like that. Okay, it doesn't work like that. You can use as corroborating evidence, but how a man is going to stay with his wife, billah, accusing her of zina, or a woman stay with a man that is accusing her of zina, Allahu alam, may Allah Azza wa Jal never test us. This is such a ridiculous thought, Allah musta'an. But if it was to happen, that baby being born whilst you're married, that is your child. For you to now say, I free myself from that child, there is a process. There is a process. It's not just going online and calling your partner an XYZ word, naam, in a Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat post, and then saying, that's not my child, I've got nothing to do with them. It doesn't work like that. If it is that case, guys, say someone very knowledgeable and respectable and wise in the community that deals with these matters, and let them tell you the right way to go about it. It's not a simple matter. Okay, it's very, very, very big. It's very big. Allah musta'an. Tayyib. The matter of cheating in general. This is something that unfortunately has become more and more simpler with the people, and this is because we've become more accustomed to cheating. How? Because it's all around us. Every song that you hear, every movie that you watch, every TV show, all of it is about people that cheat on everyone. Okay? And something that was such a shameful act, especially for women, has now become something normal. Before, traditionally, historically, who cheats on who? The man cheats on the wife, or the wife cheats on the man, usually. The man cheats on, Allah yahdik, you got no idea about history. Historically, traditionally, it's always the man cheating on the woman. Yes, of course, there were women who cheated, but this was the exception to the rule. Now, in every movie, every TV show, every song, you're finding it's the woman who's cheating on the man. And this is what they want as a change in the nature of women. Okay, we've spoken about this many times. This is one of the aspects. Okay, it's beautified to make it look it's something cool. It's just a simple mistake. And not only that, now the man is accepting of the woman. Who traditionally is more accepting if their partner cheated? The husband accepting his wife cheating, or the wife accepting if her husband cheated? The wife accepting that her husband cheated. Why? Because when a man sleeps with a woman, there isn't an emotional connection there. It's that, even though it's not right, Islamically it's not right, it's haram, it's a major sin, you can still be stoned to death under Sharia. But when a man cheats, there is no emotional connection there. A man could absolutely love his wife and children and go out and fornicate and be normal about it. Why? Because that wasn't an emotional relationship. Whereas a woman, for women, the general rule with them is intimacy is something emotional. Intimacy is something emotional. And so for her to go out of her marriage and sleep with someone, there must have been a massive emotional disconnect with her spouse, or a new emotional connect with someone else. And both of them are very bad. And unfortunately, some of the most famous movies now, that's all they're based on. The wife cheating, and then the husband accepting that the wife cheated. The wife cheating, and the husband accepting that the wife cheated. And a lot of people who are experts in this field will tell you that if a person does it once, most likely they're going to do it again. Okay, this is not something simple. It's something that should be belittled. How do we avoid it? Don't allow yourself to watch this trash. Don't allow yourself to watch this crap. Warn your family. Don't let your wife, don't let your children, you yourself, don't accept it. Now, because the more you watch it, the more easier it becomes, whether you like it or not. Again, I don't want to bring the energy levels down, but if we were to actually talk about what we know and what we do with day to day, wallahi, it would be very, very, very saddening and very bad. But we try our best to keep the spirits up and keep everyone happy and keep people smiling and the like. Easy solution, just don't watch it, wallah. Don't watch it, and don't be in gatherings where haram is. Everyone that falls into this problem later on understands the wisdom of the Sharia. Just accept what Allah says. Don't intermingle. Don't be easygoing with the opposite gender. Yes, be respectful. Maintain decent relationship if needed. But where it's not needed, خلاص. The women are with the women, the men are with the men. Simple. Don't pollute your mind with this trash. And don't set up the environment where this is easy to occur. And you'll be fine, inshallah. Capish? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.